Think. A boy who was adopted at birth. His biological parents gave him up before he could even open his eyes. Most people would think that being abandoned is the worst start in life. But for Steve Jobs, this was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Steve was raised in a modest home by loving adoptive parents. He was curious, creative, and full of ideas. He loved electronics, took apart radios and TVS just to see how they worked. But he was also a little rebellious. He didn't like to follow rules blindly. When he grew older, Steve went to college. But after just one semester, he realized the classes were too expensive, and they weren't teaching him what he wanted to learn. So, he dropped out. Yes, he quit college. But here's what's crazy. Instead of going home, he stayed on campus. He slept on the floors of friends' dorm rooms, returned Coke bottles to buy food, and walked miles to get free meals at the local temple. And he attended only the classes that inspired him, like calligraphy. That calligraphy class would later help him create beautiful fonts and designs for Apple computers. This is proof that sometimes the most random decisions in life can shape your future. A few years later, Steve teamed up with his friend Steve Wozniak. They started building computers, not in a fancy office, but in a small garage. That's where Apple was born. They created the Apple I, then the Apple II, and then the Macintosh. The company exploded. Apple became a household name, and Steve Jobs became one of the youngest and most famous CEOs in the world. But then, everything changed. Success brought power struggles inside Apple. Steve had disagreements with the board of directors, and in a shocking twist, the board decided to remove Steve from his own company. Imagine this, the company you created from nothing, the company that carries your vision, kicks you out. Steve called this moment the most painful thing that ever happened to him. He felt lost, embarrassed, and heartbroken. But instead of staying down, Steve made a choice. He turned this failure into fuel. He started a new company called NeXT, building powerful computers for businesses. And he bought a small animation studio called Pixar. At first, Pixar was struggling, but Steve believed in its potential. Under his leadership, Pixar created Toy Story, the first ever full-length computer animated movie. It was a massive hit and made Pixar the most successful animation studio in the world. Meanwhile, Apple was struggling without Steve Jobs. Its products weren't selling, and the company was losing money fast. Apple was close to bankruptcy, and then fate brought Steve back. Apple bought Next to use its technology, and Steve returned to Apple as CEO. This was his second chance, and this time he was unstoppable. He redesigned Apple from the ground up. He launched the iMac, a colorful, bold computer that became an instant hit. Then came the iPod, which put 1,000 songs in your pocket. Then the iPhone, which changed the way the entire world communicates. And finally, the iPad, which created a whole new category of devices. Steve Jobs turned Apple into the most valuable company in the world. From being fired from his own company to leading it to global domination, Steve's comeback was legendary. In 2011, Steve Jobs passed away, but his vision lives on. Today, Apple is worth trillions of dollars. And Steve Jobs is remembered not just as a businessman, but as a dreamer who believed he could change the world, and did.